Well, it's a great honor to be with you.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So you, in the text that was published on La Repubblica, you say that we're living in two opposite spaces and we don't really know how to reconcile them, how to combine them, the public and the private space. To those I would add two others, which is the natural environment and the one that is enhanced by technologies. Do you agree?
Well, I think we're trying to learn to negotiate how to deal with both in, I would say, going the same direction as opposed to contradicting each other. We're living in chaotic times, you know. We're living in times of the kind of time that you would have seen in the Renaissance as we move from one type of culture to the other. We were alluding to the Arab Spring. We're now looking at the Arab Summer.
Yeah.
It's really gone. It's really gone into its extreme, and this is the kind of, if you push a medium too far, said McLuhan, you reverse its properties. So we all believe the Arab Spring is a fabulous thing. Yes. But it dealt with, well, we start with Syria. I'm not saying we start with Syria, but let's say that it becomes really, really bad scene at the time with Syria, and where we are now. So, chaos. I'm a student of Giambattista Vito, who says that every time the cycles come to chaos, bits and pieces scatter, and from those emerge the new conditions of life. The Renaissance. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
A culture gone to seed, dominated by the church, requiring this extreme reaction, involving hundreds and thousands of people in the bitter war over the prerogatives of having a say or not having a say as a person in the context of what's happening. So we create this individual person. I'm going too long, but I'm just saying...
No. I mean, we need to...
We're now dealing with an electronic environment.
Yeah.
That is that other part that we haven't learned to really control. Exactly. That's out of our hands, creating enormous changes, bringing up transparency from the depth of secrecy.
Yeah.
So we're into something that's you know, it is a disruptive technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you have imagined at the dawn of the Arab Spring that we would have gone this far? Or were you I was just taken by it. I thought it was wonderful. I created a concept around it, which I call the limbic system, the social limbic system, because that was my first sort of real understanding of what was happening across boundaries, across cultures, across social levels, and it was the sign of hope. Yeah.
For sure. I swallowed whole.
I think we all did.
I think we all did.
Well, now it's kind of, you know, sometimes when we say we should reform the Italian bureaucracy, I think we'd kind of fall into a situation like that, where you overthrow the known, but then all the scum kind of emerges from...
It really does. We are into a transition time that is, I just hope it doesn't get much more painful than it already is. How long can we stand this? What can we learn from it? How can we handle it? These are all the questions that arise. But they are systemic problems. They are not just, these are the bad guys. No, you don't do it this way anymore.
Exactly. And the fact is, though, that the biggest threat right now which is ISIS, is so systemic that I don't think anyone's figured out where the heart of the matter is, and and how do you detonate that threat. So is technology being used at this phase for the good of humanity or for its worse? I mean, we see these people putting videos together that are a powerful form of recruitment because they're miming what kids are doing on their consoles and PlayStations, where, you know, they've been playing violent games.
No, you're right. That's a very good observation that I hadn't made. I did make it in a sort of a subconscious way, because I do remember now having a flicker of a thought about just that, to what extent the kind of dance that we are inviting our kids to do,
Exactly.
you know, Gangnam Style.
Exactly.
I know.
So, you know, are we producing more light or more darkness? Are we, you know, is it because that form of propaganda kind of brings me back to what Hitler did with radio?
Yes, absolutely. But, you know, Marshall thought
Yes.
that the devil was in the media, and I'm beginning to think that he's got a point.
Yeah.
No, that there's a lot of... In fact, speaking of media, their responsibility is huge.
Well, but there's no there anymore. Or there is. There is. I mean, that's mass media is, and that's another question. But my obsession right now is to understand, to produce some kind of documentation that can be taken to the big media players that proves how deeply with the subconscious is being manipulated, and therefore there's a moral urgency to deliver good news and not only horrific news, because that's what we get all the time. Do you? How do you see that? I mean, there's this obsession with bad news that we're vomited upon every day.
I agree, but that's the thing that if I talk about transparency via media, via the internet, via the deep internet, and all these various combinations, and big data, and it's because, yes, that's our transparency as people, but the media also make the world transparent.
Yeah.
So it's a mutual transparency. You cannot not see, you cannot not hear, you cannot tolerate. So the point is, the media simply report bad news because those bad news are actually really part of our world, as opposed to having been, well, it happened elsewhere, you know.
But there's also lots of good happening in the world. We don't hear as much about that, unfortunately.
Yeah, we need saints.
We need?
Saints. We need saints. No, look, the saints of my culture have been the big business guys. They were the representative of where people should go. Or they were Madonna, or they were these not bad at all entertainers, but they were our saints. We don't really relate to them anymore quite so well.
But do you think that, because we have opposing forces, which are very difficult for us to quantify, we're in a time that's obsessed with quantification, and we can quantify the magnitude of the pain and the horrors that are being brought into the world, but we don't have as much visibility on all the good that's being done. Why do you think that is?
It's a very good question. Well, McLuhan had an answer. I always have McLuhan to help.
Well, you know.
McLuhan had an
Like
answer.
that.
His answer was, it takes a lot of bad news to sell good news.
Yeah.
And what he meant by that advertising was always good news.
Yeah.
That we had a load of it, but we wouldn't pay attention if we hadn't all this trash around it.
Interesting.
And the bad news. No, I think Marshall had a point, but everything is still very much business. There is a sharing economy. There is a sensibility that's coming around. It's refreshing. I don't know how much it's going to take over, but you know, there could be a new economy, and there is certainly one of sharing and of crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. I like these things. They feel right. You know?
Well, you've promoted some. Are you creating a critical mass with those platforms?
Well, actually, we're not really looking for critical mass. What we're doing is right now, these are moderated panels on invitation. So we have just so many collaborators on my platform. I don't know whether we want to open it yet to the public. We would like to mature the stuff a bit more. I think it's still jejune, right? So, but you can read it, and you can estimate by yourself, to what extent you feel you could contribute. I know now that my next step in it is to ask everybody in all the panels to actually take a role and have a task to accomplish, which is to actually produce a result within a deadline.
Right.
That gives people a sense of an opportunity, a sense of, okay, well, I do have a responsibility, and let's go and do something about it.
Also because we're immersed in the era of information, but we can't seem to harness knowledge. So in order to harness knowledge, you need to be piecing the bits together and transforming them in some way. Because when we're in the world of everything, which often means nothing, it's just too much.
Well, one of the things is, of course, we'd love to also add to the ThinkWire a kind of a data analytics system that would actually gather the information in an intelligent way, but we're not there yet.
I was just going to ask you that. If you think that big data, aside from making us all transparent because no safe computer's ever been designed because the NSA can peek into anything it wants, but what use of big data do you see that can kind of become a map or a form of orientation for people who would like to evolve at a faster pace than we're going now?
Well, what big data is doing already is to retune our cognitive strategies, reorganize our way of thinking. It's a cognitive revolution because now the answer depends entirely on the question. Before, the answer was somewhere, even in somebody's head. But the answer doesn't, there's no answer in big data, as long as there is no question. So, what we first should do is teach our kids in school to ask questions instead of dishing out the pablum they are obliged to, we should, and the other thing is, and we'll find this is going to be a challenge for people to think differently, kids do it already. They really do. They're already putting things together that we never thought was. What was Twitter, for God's sake? With a name like that?
Yeah, absolutely. But what you're saying is key, is to learn to ask questions instead of give answers. Well, our educational systems are definitely a century and a half behind. But
yes, but even somebody who thought about it was twisted by the system. I gave answers to my poor kids.
Yeah.
No. Well, I should be fair with myself. I should be fair
Please
with myself because I also got them to get together, work, ask questions for sure, but also actually collaborate and then search things.
Right.
And put them together, and that was I think that was a successful way of doing it.
So key elements are teach them to learn questions, and teach them how to do research.
And how to work together.
And how to work as a team.
In teams.
Yeah.
That's right. The whole idea of giving responsibilities and so on.
Where do you see that happening?
For the moment, it's a method, and I have used that method in school, but also for business, for government, for cultural affairs. I'm proposing a couple in Udine right now and in Matera. We'll see where that goes. But I mean, I do this professionally as well. I'm fascinated by the collaborative possibilities enhanced by the right kind of technology, the right kind of platform. So I'm involved in simply stimulating that wherever I can. And I'm getting into transmedia as well. And I like transmedia because it has a huge value of educating kids to actually use their tools, which they already do very well, by the way. I know a 12-year-old kid who does 5. She uploads 5 YouTube videos a Hello? Yeah. She's 12. She's the daughter of Tom Klinkelstein, a good friend of mine who lives in New York. And when I heard this, I said, oh, my God.
Well, actually, now that you say that, I have a friend of mine in New York whose son is 9, and we went for dinner, and he was shooting a video he had this, and he had a very clear idea of how he was going to do it, of how he was going to promote it.
It's fabulous.
Yeah. So, what tools, what technologies do you enjoy using? Which are most useful, and where do you use?
My latest, Google Translate.
Yeah.
Don't slap me. You know.
No.
No, I'll tell you. My big discovery was that once I received a letter in Portuguese, and I can't feign to speak or read Portuguese, I couldn't get the letter. I said, well, why not? I thought Babelfish, no, it was gone. So it was called Google Translate. Tell you how long I waited before I was trying any kind of translating system. So I throw my Portuguese letter into the right side, and on the left side, and on the right side, and there comes my letter in perfectly fine English with mistakes here and there, but good quality English. I thought, my God, translation is becoming good. The next day, I start translating a 12-page paper of mine that I had to translate from English to Italian, or vice versa, and I get a very good result in 2 days.
Yeah.
Translating myself,
I know,
takes me 12 days.
I know.
Yeah, I hate it. I just hate it. Anyway, this is great. I loved it. But the reason I'm telling you this is for something actually much deeper. It's the fact that was revealed to me by a Korean informaticien, computer scientist of a high level, who said, I said to him, it's amazing. I mean, how can the system, find the meanings of this and then just choose? He said, forget meaning. I said, why forget? No, it has nothing to do with meaning. It's the actual shape of the sentence that is exposed to an innumerable number of similar sentences in different contexts. Recognizing your context gives you the best possible response.
Right. Wow.
I said, translation not going through meaning. Wow.
So it's intuitive, right? He's saying, or it's by association,
no. It's
not even.
Pure. It's like face recognition.
Right.
It has nothing to do. Actually, it has nothing to do with any kind of information in itself. It doesn't deal with information. It just deals with a kind of
with an image,
a Photoshop of
right
your sentence, your face,
right,
and throws it in front of like myriads of possible faces and finds the right one,
right.
And then finds your name, and then finds your home, and then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's transparency.
Yeah, well, it's just that in this time of transition, it's so hard to understand where we want to protect ourselves and where we want to share. So we kind of feel like we're going out.
No,
into the
we have to
street
deal with
naked.
that. That's a political and a social and an educational problem.
Yeah,
it really, really is. It's something that we have to deal with, and a legal one too. Because in fact, the law is funny. It may not be respected, but it's there, and it's there as a sign of a structured environment.
Yeah, but it's not moving fast enough.
No, of course not. That's a problem, and we are actually, well, I know 2 or 3 people who are trying to push it, but I want to include law as well, because I don't think a lot will happen if we don't have some sense that we all agree on. Okay, there are people who are not respecting it. That's one thing, but it's there, and you can actually refer to it, and you can maybe create a social order around it.
Right.
But we don't have that.
No, it's because it can't keep up with the pace of technology.
Because of what we were saying before, that
Exactly.
we cannot yet really reconcile our, opaque self and our transparent self and our opaque bureaucracies and our, visible, hey, hello, Swiss leaks, hello, Blatter,
Yeah, sure.
This is what we're looking at. So the good news is that it goes both ways,
Right.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
sure.
this is we're into this kind of part of the chaos.
Part of the chaos. Now, do you think, or how do you think that individual consciousness and collective consciousness are evolving? Do you see...
Collective consciousness is absolutely evolving, but it's evolving in a way which is all comprehensive. That's not where the definition is. The definition is more in the various configuration of conscious operations that we practice or are now creating. These kind of things. How do we interconnect ourselves? In what configuration? That's where consciousness and intelligence is going, and emotion. But one more thing you should know, should think about, is the fact that now there are some philosophers who are saying consciousness is not produced by brains. It's there and it's filtered by brains. So it's not something we produce, it's something we receive.
Yes. Is technology empowering and emancipating the individual, or is it making it more, or is it making us more easily exploitable by corporate interests?
Oh my God.
Simple question.
Well, actually, I go on it now?
Yeah.
Actually, the answers have been given already by 3 momentous films that, of course, are not discussed efficiently. And the recent one that I saw is Merchants of Doubt. A good one. It actually shows that people like myself, sociologists, experts, climatologists, anybody that can buy is going to say that, the world warming is not really happening.
Right.
Climate change and all that, it's been there. No proof, Smoking is not absolute. We don't think that smoking is bad for you. I mean, they still say it in court. Beautiful. That's one. The previous one was called Food. Since we are in the food world, we might as well mention it. Food Inc. The same guys did that. Remember that one?
Yes, absolutely.
That one tells it all. From the time we invent writing, we invent the alphabet, we invent electricity, there's just no way we can turn this one around. We just have to go through it. We have to go through it. And this is why it's too... I wouldn't jump to say it's all evil. No, it's a very strange unfolding of man under the control of language. Losing control of language. That's fundamental. Technology is making us lose control of language and putting this control back into language, outside ourselves, bodies, minds, Yep.
Okay.
That was fun.